Imagine this. You are going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit and you get pulled over. It's not fun seeing the red and blue lights behind you, but you're not too worried. So after the officer grabs your license, registration, runs all that, he comes back to your car and says, hang tight. I'm gonna get the canine unit out here. Most people, when they hear that, they start to panic. They start to explain. They start to volunteer information. Or even worse, they say the most dangerous sentence in America. Go ahead. I've got nothing to hide. Listen carefully. That sentence may feel innocent. It may feel cooperative. It may feel like the fastest way to get home, but it can also hand the police permission to turn a speeding ticket into a search of your car. So in this video, I'm going to give you the exact words to say when police threaten to bring a drug dog to the scene. I'll tell you what to do if they threaten to call one, what to do if the dog is already there, what to do if the dog alerts, and near the end, I'll give you one small car door tip that sounds almost too simple, but in the right case, it can matter a lot. Because with police dogs, the trap is not always the dog. Sometimes the trap is the delay. Sometimes the trap is the question. And sometimes the trap is your own mouth. Hi, I'm criminal defense attorney Marc Lopez, and I have helped thousands of people that have had the same reaction after getting searched. I thought I was just being helpful. And that's the problem. A lot of searches do not start with evidence. They start with pressure. Do you have anything illegal in the car? You don't mind if I have a look, right? Why are you being so nervous? If you don't let me search, I'm just going to call the dog. And most normal people hear those things and they say, well, I better explain myself. No, do not explain yourself. You are not there to convince an officer you are a nice person. You're not there to audition for the role of the most cooperative citizen in the whole world. Your goal is very simple. Get to the interaction safely, calmly, and without giving any free evidence. So let's talk about what to do when a traffic stop turns into a dog sniff situation. Scenario one, you get pulled over, speeding, expired plates, lane violation, something hanging from the mirror, whatever. The officer takes your license, registration, and insurance. They go back to their patrol car, maybe they run your information, maybe they come back with a warning. And instead of letting you leave, they say, hang tight, I'm calling the canine unit. Or, I'm gonna have the dog come out to the scene. Or, if you don't let me search, I'm just gonna call the canine unit. This is where people mess up. They think the question is, how do I talk my way out of this? Wrong question. The real question is this traffic stop legally over, or am I being detained longer for something else? That distinction matters. A traffic stop has a mission. The mission is the traffic issue. Writing the ticket, checking your license, checking registration, checking insurance, basic officer safety, basic traffic stop tasks. But a dog sniff is different. Police generally cannot stretch out a completed traffic stop because they feel like waiting around for a dog. If they're extending the stop for a dog sniff, they may need independent, reasonable suspicion. That means your first job is not to argue. Your first job is to make the issue clear. Not dramatic, not emotional, not, I know my rights. While your phone is 2 inches from the officer's chin, just calm. And here are those words. Officer, are you detaining me or am I free to leave? That's it. Practice that sentence. Say it in your car. Say it in the mirror. Say it like the most boring person on planet Earth. Because boring is your superpower when you're dealing with the police. And here is why that question is so useful. It forces the officer to choose a lane. If the traffic stop is over, you should be free to leave. If you're not free to leave, then you are being detained. And if you're being detained just to wait for a dog, now the legal question becomes, what reasonable suspicion justified extending the stop? And you are not going to solve that on the side of the road. You're not going to pull out a Supreme Court case and say, objection, Your Honor. That's not how it works. The roadside is not the courtroom. The roadside is where you protect the record. Court is where your lawyer fights the search. So if the officer says, just hang tight, you say, officer, are you detaining me or am I free to leave? If the officer says, you're not free to go, you say, I understand. I do not consent to extending the stop and I do not consent to any searches. Then stop. No speech, no biography. No, I'm just coming from my cousin's house. No, this is my girlfriend's car. No, I used to smoke weed, but not anymore. No, my uncle's a police officer. Nobody cares. And I say this with love. Every extra sentence is a scratch-off lottery ticket for the police report. And you do not want to win that lottery. Now, second scenario. What if you get pulled over and the dog is already there? Maybe it's a canine officer. Maybe the dog is already in the patrol car. Maybe you hear barking before the officer even gets to your window. So what changes? Well, not as much as you think. The dog being present does not mean you have to answer questions. The dog being present does not mean you have to consent to a search. The dog being present does not mean you have to help the officer build a case. So if the officer says, I'm going to run my dog around the car, your answer is, I do not consent to searches. If the officer says, I don't need your consent, you say, I understand. I do not consent. That line matters because maybe they're going to do it anyway. Maybe they believe they have the legal authority. Maybe they're right. Maybe they are wrong. And that can get fought later. But you do not need to donate consent. Consent is like handing them the keys to the search. Do not hand them the keys. Your line is, I do not consent to searches. And if they start asking, is there anything in the car? Any guns? Any drugs? Anything I should know about? You say, I plead the fifth. If they keep going, I want an attorney. And if they keep pushing after that, you keep repeating yourself. I don't consent to searches. I plead the fifth. I want an attorney. 3 powerful phrases. Not exciting, not flashy, not the kind of thing that gets you invited onto a podcast to tell your heroic roadside story, but it works because it does not give them extra material. Let's role play this. I'm the officer. Do you have anything illegal in the car? You. I do not consent to searches. Officer. That's not what I asked. I asked if you have anything illegal in the car. You. I plead the fifth. Officer. Why would you plead the fifth if you haven't done anything wrong? You. I'm exercising my rights. I do not consent to searches. So you're refusing to cooperate? You. I'm being respectful, but I do not consent to searches. Well, I'm going to run my dog around the car. You. I do not consent to searches. Am I being detained or am I free to go? You're being detained. You. I understand. I plead the fifth. I want an attorney. Notice what you're not doing. You're not debating. You're not insulting. You're not explaining. You're not asking if the dog is certified. You're not saying that dog better not scratch my paint. Please, I am begging you. You're not barking back at the dog, which I've seen somebody do in a video that I've watched. I shouldn't have to say that, but I've seen it. Now, let's talk about the phrase that gets people in trouble all the time. If you have nothing to hide, why won't you let me search? That sentence is powerful because it attacks your identity. Nobody wants to look guilty. Nobody wants to seem suspicious. Nobody wants to feel like the bad guy. So people panic and they say, fine, go ahead. No, your answer is, officer, I'm exercising my rights. That is not evidence of anything. That is calm, that's respectful. That does not accuse the police officer of doing anything wrong. And it reminds everyone watching the body cam that you're using your rights is not suspicious, because it isn't. In America, exercising your rights should not be treated like evidence of a crime, and it's not considered evidence of a crime under law. That is a pro-freedom point. It's not anti-police. Police have a job to do, but you have rights. Both things can be true at the exact same time. You can be polite and still say no. You can be respectful and still protect yourself. You can cooperate with a basic traffic stop, license, registration, insurance, without volunteering for a search. Now, here are the 3 biggest mistakes I see people make in dog sniff traffic stops. Mistake number 1, talking too much. The officer says, anything in the car? And the driver says, no, well, I mean, my friend had the car earlier. I don't know, maybe he had something in there. I don't smoke anymore. I used to, but not now. I mean, there might be something from before, but it is not mine. Stop. You are literally writing the police report out loud. Don't do that. Mistake number 2, consenting because you feel awkward. The officer says, you don't mind if I have a quick look, do you? And people say, sure. Why? Because saying no feels rude. Listen, saying no to a search is not rude. It is a constitutional boundary. It's a constitutional right. So try this. Officer, I respect what you're doing, but I do not consent to any searches. That's polite, that's clear, and that protects you. Mistake number 3, fighting the search on the roadside. If the officer ignores you and searches anyway, do not physically resist. Do not block the officer. Don't grab the dog's leash. Don't shut the door on the officer. Do not turn a search issue into a resisting charge. Your job is to say the words clearly. I do not consent. I plead the fifth. I want an attorney. Then you let your lawyer fight it in court. Again, roadside is not the courtroom. Roadside is where you survive the interaction, protect the record. Court is where you fight the case. Now, here's the extra tip I promise. This is not the main point of the video, but it does matter. Sometimes the legal fight is not just whether the dog sniffed around the outside of the car. Sometimes the fight is whether the dog went inside the car before there's probable cause. That can create a very different issue. Some courts have talked about what is called the instinctive entry rule. It's a fancy phrase, it's a simple idea. If a dog jumps into a car completely on its own, not directed, not encouraged, not helped, not facilitated by the officer, some courts treat that differently than a situation where the officer helps create the dog's entry. But if the officer opens the door, leaves that door open, positions the dog, removes barriers, encourages the dog, or otherwise helps the dog get inside before probable cause exists, now you have a much stronger Fourth Amendment issue. So here is the practical takeaway. If an officer orders you out of the car, you have to comply. There's other videos on that. I'll link them up here. Do not argue about stepping out. Do not refuse. Do not make this worse. But if you can do safely, close the door behind you. Calmly, normally. No slamming, no drama. Do not close it like you found out your ex is dating your best friend from high school. Just close the door. And you can say, "Officer, I'm complying. I'm stepping out." Why? Because an open door creates an opportunity for the dog. If the dog jumps in through an open door, everyone can argue later about whether the entry was instinctive or whether police facilitated it. But if it's closed, it's going to be a lot harder to argue that the officer did not facilitate it if the officer opened that door. So do not help create the problem. Now, an important warning. If an officer tells you to leave the door open, do not physically fight over the door. Do not get into tug of war. Just say, "I do not consent to any search of my vehicle. I want to close my door." We want to hear that on the body cam, so if the dog does jump in, we can argue that you did not agree to that. Now, that's the point. You're trying to preserve this issue. You're not trying to win the door closing argument on the side of the road. Now, what if the dog is there and the dog does alert? Well, first, don't panic. Second, do not start explaining. Third, do not say, "The dog is wrong. The dog smells my sandwich." Even if the dog does smell your sandwich, this is not the time to litigate the sandwich. If the dog alerts, the officer may search the car. Your job is not to convince the officer the dog made a mistake. Your job is to protect the record. Say, "I do not consent to the search." If they ask questions, I plead the fifth. If they keep questioning, I want an attorney. Then be quiet. A lot of cases are not helped because the client gave the perfect roadside speech. A lot of cases are helped because the client finally stopped talking. Silence is not weakness. Silence is discipline. And silence is what keeps a bad situation from becoming worse. So here's the full playbook. If the officer says, "I'm calling a dog," you say, "Officer, are you detaining me or am I free to go?" If they say, "You're being detained," you say, "I understand. I do not consent to extending this stop and I do not consent to searches." If the dog is already there and the officer says, "I'm running my dog around your car," you say, "I do not consent to searches." If they ask, "What are you hiding?" you say, "I'm exercising my rights." That is not evidence of anything. They ask about drugs, guns, where you're coming from, where you're going, who owns the car, who had the car earlier. You say, "I plead the fifth." If they keep going, "I want an attorney." And if they order you out of the vehicle, you comply, but then you state, "I'm complying, I'm stepping out and closing the door." And if they search anyway, you say, for the camera to pick it up, "I do not consent to searches." Then stop talking. And I know that's the hardest part. Not the words, the silence after the words, because people hate silence. Police know that. They ask a question, then they wait, trained to wait. And normal people feel the pressure and start filling in the space. Don't fill in the space. Let the silence be awkward. Awkward's fine. Awkward is better than a criminal conviction. And the biggest lesson is this: do not help the police extend the stop. Do not help police search your car. Do not help police write the report. Be calm, be polite, be boring. Now, if you have made it to the end of this video, I appreciate you. I sure would appreciate it if you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave me a comment. Let me know if you've had any thoughts on drug dogs, dogs in general. I love dogs. I love them so much. If you can't think of anything to write, let me know what video you want to see next. If you truly can't think of anything to write, let me know who I remind you of. We got Charlie Day, John Leguizamo. We got Tom Cruise. I like that one. Jack Black. And also Turtle from Entourage. I'm hoping Skinny Turtle as opposed to Fatter Turtle. But, let me know. Most importantly, if you are charged with a crime in Indiana, give me and my team a call here at the Marc Lopez Law Firm. We will love to talk about your options. The number is 317-632-3642. And remember, always plead the fifth.